Cool. Awesome. All right. Well, EP1 or episode 1 of Ship Talkers. I've got my curly-headed brother from another mother, Curtis Garrett, on here. Does the industry have a quoting problem or an invoice problem? And I'll set the stage with this. Like at my carrier, we have my invoice hub. I consume invoices. I have millions of dollars in invoices flowing through my platform, and we hover at about a 30% inaccuracy rating, meaning, 30% of every invoice consumed isn't matching the awarded rate quote.
Right.
So is it a problem of the invoice being incorrect, or is it a problem of the upstream quoting being the problem? What do you think, Curtis?
Yeah, I mean, when I think through this, obviously it's complex. You've got different aspects on the shipper side, different aspects with anybody in the middle, any technology in the middle. And then you even have some nuance carrier by carrier, like every W&I department at a carrier is a little bit different. The way they execute an inspection and make a change on a shipment, the level of evidence and photos and things like that they provide to back it up. So it is a bit like a dark, jungle forest that is kind of scary to walk through sometimes. But I do believe that everything, probably in business in general, but specifically LTL, everything that's kind of hidden up front as a problem or a miss or a gap, it shows itself in the ARAP process. Like,
yes,
every problem rolls downhill to that invoice, right? And so that's definitely one way to look at it, where if it's easier, more streamlined to quote, and part of that is just change management and getting, a big one is like full addresses for locations versus just zip codes. That causes all kinds of problems, both on just service as well as invoice changes, where, I can get a rate and a transit time and choose, from 20 different carriers based on my zip codes, weight, and class. But if I actually have, full ground level location details, street address, all those other attributes, things that Shipify is working on, then that's gonna eliminate a lot of that complexity downhill. So I would say it's more of an invoicing problem if I'm going to take a stance, because I see that being the category of the two that needs more change, I guess. And I think it's easier to change 50 LTL carriers than, several 100,000 shippers and the level of education and the habits that they've got.
This is where I'm going to take a different stance than you, and that's perfectly okay. That's why we're here. What I think is extremely lacking in the LTL industry, when you compare it to like what's out there for parcel, right, is the digital connectivity and the easy access to tools that are built in. And let's be fair, there's TMSs have been around for the last 10 or 15 years at different levels, different capabilities, some easy to use, some not to use. But where a lot of them don't do a good job, especially with LTL, is taking the tools that carriers use on the back end to capture this additional revenue, i.e., we have dimensioners, we dimensionalize all the freight, we scale it, one, because they're moving stuff across state lines, got to be DOT compliant and everything else. But two, because they want to make sure that what you're tendering them on that bill of lading is accurate to what they picked up, right? From a classification standpoint to everything else, including the additional services that are required on that shipment. So like, to me, it's the customers don't have really good tools on the front end, right, that encourage that behavioral change. Because I'm with you. The number of shippers always is going to outweigh the number of carriers.
Right.
But they don't have a good vehicle to use. Even the carrier websites themselves, most of them don't even require dimensions to get a rate quote. And now you have this NMFTA ruling coming out that you're going to have DIMs in order to accomplish this and get the correct class and everything else.
I don't have an answer. Like, I don't have the magic bullet answer. I don't know that anybody does. But as far as incentivizing shippers to use EBOLs to invest in dimensioning and weighing hardware, I think you're seeing now, especially with the EBOL campaign, the carriers have kind of gone to the brokers first, and I think that's an easier sell because the brokers typically get it a bit more, they're more in tune with the carrier's operational difficulties and know the need for the carrier to quantify the freight on their trailer versus the shut, or what was that phrase from back in the day? Cover the floor, shut the door. Those days are over. So no, I agree. It is a bit of a tough challenge still to kind of present an equally weighed, value proposition from a shipper, other than if they can negotiate some sort of pricing reduction due to that saved data entry cost and risk of error going down for the carrier. But I can't confidently say that's a thing that's being offered yet. I know I've heard it from a couple here and there, but yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, selfishly, and I know with our model in particular, because we partner with the carriers a lot, I think giving them the technology vehicle to improve the behavior is your first best step. You have to give them a tool that's conducive to consuming the information in the manner you want it. Now, whether they have the budget for a dimensionalizer or not, I know when I was a carrier rep, if I had a big enough customer, and I know Mike Bookout, our co-founder, did the same thing, it was worth it for us to go buy them the scale so they could start scaling their freight. So I wasn't dealing with invoicing issues. We were getting paid more on time, and basically good in is good out, right? Yep. So I could see in the future a co-branded program for customers that are larger with either the technology getting much cheaper where it's easier to set this aside, okay, $2,000-3,000 for a dimensionalizer, done, I'll spend that. But I think this, there's probably about 4 big people in the game with dimensionalizers, and boy, does it run the gambit of price point, right?
Yeah.
You have your Metzlers, Cubiscans, Freight Snap. What was the other one you mentioned to me?
Cargo Spectre.
Cargo Spectre.
Yeah. Mettler Toledo, and Rice Lake system.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's about a half a dozen.
There's a handful. Yeah.
And some have very, distinct capability differences. Some are they have the track where it's a longer footprint, a bigger footprint to be scanned, but it's mechanical because the scanners are moving across the track. Others are just more image based, but the arms and there's no moving parts. It's stationary. So yeah, I agree. I think again, brokers, if they jump on pushing, implementation of dimensioners and scales, it's a win-win for them. The carriers are going to enjoy doing business with them better if there's fewer discrepancies. Yep. Even just the fact that the effort is there and the investment's there, carriers know that it's not going to get perfect and no discrepancies overnight, but that's a big signal that you're, as a shipper, in a broker relationship, you're working towards the right thing. And then it makes you stickier with your client, right? Like one of my clients, a 3PL in Georgia, PLP Logistics, they actually do this. They have a Freight Snap partnership, and they're selling this along with all their managed services to all their prospects now. A couple of their current clients have it. And they got a deal. They give them a cheaper Freight Snap dimensioner. They have kind of this program to calculate the ROI and paying it back, and it's working well, but it's still new.